So welcome to another Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to go over a Batman key issue that I think is pretty underfollowed and overlooked, and especially in this environment right now. I don't think there's really any hype for this issue, and you probably noticed by looking at the comic here, it's a Batman Vengeance of Bane. This comic book is the origin and first appearance of Bane, and being an early 90s book made in 1993. So as far as villains and first appearance of villains go in the early 90s, you know, I always kind of, what pops to mind is Carnage. First Carnage, Amazing Spider-Man 361. That book going for about $350 to $400 in the CGC 9.8. Whereas this book here is going for about $230 is what I purchased this book for about a couple months ago. So obviously a pretty big price difference there. And, you know, you'd think if, you know, maybe looking on the CGC census, you know, some of the difference in price could be discussed. So, you know, we'll definitely look on the census and get into some of the details. But, you know, this book, as I said, I do think it's overlooked and underfollowed. So I do have two reasons why I think this book in general is just kind of underfollowed compared to other Batman keys in the 80s and 90s. So the first reason I think it's you know, slightly underfollowed and overlooked is it's not a part of Batman or Detective Comics. So, you know, it's really easy when, you know, a first appearance or a key issue is in the Batman or Detective run, because I think, you know, anyone who wants Batman comics, that's sort of the two go-to runs and series that people go to. And, you know, Batman having a lot of first appearances, a lot of villain first appearances, Detective as well, you know, that Detective 583 comes to mind, with the first Scarface and Ventriloquist, which, yeah, I think is a book that I'm just kind of realizing that I really want to. So, you know, this Batman Vengeance of Bane being sort of essentially a one-off, although a couple years later they did come out with number 2. Basically, essentially one-off, the Batman Vengeance of Bane, not a part of Batman or the Detective run. So I think for that reason alone, it just kind of gets overlooked. The second being, you know, since this is essentially a one-off graphic novel, I think it gets overshadowed a lot by The Killing Joke and Batman The Dark Knight Returns. And both of those are such classic graphic novels. You know, I know such a great entry-level Batman graphic novel, if you're a Batman fan, is The Killing Joke. And then Batman The Dark Knight Returns, it really doesn't get any more iconic than that. That's kind of like the first modern Batman and first Carrie Kelly, the girl Robin. So there's a lot to like about those two graphic novels, but I think this sort of being third in line for that era in the graphic novels kind of affects it for some reason. I mean, personally, even looking on the CGC census, Batman Vengeance of Bane I think is a way better buy than The Killing Joke. There's a lot less of Vengeance of Banes than The Killing Joke. And, you know, Batman The Dark Knight Returns is so iconic, so I wouldn't really put it on that level. But, so, yeah, let's just get quickly into the CGC census on Batman Vengeance of Bane. This one is a first print. So, first print Batman Vengeance of Bane on the CGC census. There's 711 of these in the CGC 9.8. And 30.4% of them, of all graded copies of Vengeance of Bane, are 9.8s. And, you know, for the 90s, that's kind of a normal ratio. It's not a really rare ratio, or, you know, a ratio that, you know, you'd be running out to buy it because it's like an investment grade, rare, hard to find book. That's not, you know, 30% certainly not a rare ratio. But for a 90s book, it's not too bad at all. It's, I would say, average. And when you look at the total numbers of these, being 711 of them, the total number of first Carnages is like 2,900 and something in the CGC 9.8. So I think, you know, for a 90s first appearance of a villain, Bane being super iconic, I would say almost on the same level as Carnage if you're a Batman fan. Like, if you're a Batman fan, you probably like Bane just as much as if you're a big Spider-Man fan and you love Carnage. But as I said, 711 9.8s rather than 2,900 9.8s. And yeah, you obviously get that tangible first appearance in Bane. So that's why I kind of think this is a little bit overshadowed. There are some other graphic novels in Batman that really kind of take the cake and take the spotlight, that are really popular. Killing Joke, Batman Dark Knight Returns. And this is not a part of Batman or Detective Run. So, you know, right now, that's kind of why I think it's a bit overfollowed. I do have some just general positives on this book of why I think right now it's a really good buy. So right now in general, there's pretty much no hype for this issue. So, you know, no movies coming out with Bane in them, no trailers, no pop culture events. And in that type of environment, you can be comfortable that you're going to get a fair, normal price. And those are the environments that I always recommend to buy comic books in. You know, the ones where you're going to get a fair price. And the only way you're going to get a fair price is if there's like no movie, no hype, no trailer or anything. Because, as I said, a fair price for this is about $220 to $240 right now. Me purchasing this for about $230. That would be about a fair price. But during, what was it, The Dark Knight Rises, when that came out, this book was reaching up to that $400 level during that time when, you know, obviously Bane being the main villain in The Dark Knight Rises. But right now, you get a fair price, no hype, so you know, you like that about this book. As I said, when The Dark Knight Rises came out, it was a lot higher price, so if a movie does come out in the future, that can be sort of a price that you could expect this book to sort of go for, and, you know, hopefully Bane sort of catches on more and more as a sort of an iconic first appearance villain that a lot of collectors want. Now, for a 1990s book, and obviously I compared it to Carnage, it's not too bad on the CGC census. So, you know, 711 of these is not too many for an iconic first appearance, especially in the 90s. Again, Carnage has about 2,900. So I think, you know, comparing it that way is a little, you can kind of see that, you know, there's really no reason why this issue should be overlooked. It's not like it's like super available on the CGC census and, you know, easy to find and just not even worth collecting or anything. And then, you know, my last reason here for a positive is that, I said it, you get an iconic first appearance in Origin. And that's always something you want to look for when you're investing in comics. You know, personally, I don't, you know, buy too many non-keys. I do like sort of cult following secondary keys and cool covers and things like that. But if, you know, there's no real reason to purchase a comic except, you know, maybe you saw it at your store and you really like the cover or something. In general, I kind of shy away from those. Me being a pretty strategic collector, I just stick to CGC 9.8s from the 80s and 90s, mainly because that's what I really love. But stick to those key issues and origins from the 80s and 90s. And yeah, Batman Vengeance of Bane is one of those issues that I think is overlooked, but, you know, not for a really good reason. I think, you know, you get an iconic first appearance of a Batman villain, and you can get it for $230 in a perfect CGC 9.8 copy. Like, to me, that is a pretty good value proposition, given a lot of, you know, other Batman keys out there. And I personally always kind of recommend, if you love Batman, to like buy Batman keys from the 90s and 80s. In general, there's less of them on the CGC census, and they're also, in general, less expensive than kind of the equivalent Amazing Spider-Man. So, like, personally, I almost feel like Batman comics are like the best deal as far as like buying CGC 9.8 comics from the 80s and 90s. So, you know, totally recommend to get Batman Vengeance of Bane, as this video states, and I do think it's overlooked and kind of underappreciated and underfollowed. So good one to add to your collection to get a first appearance. And just really quick, kind of a bonus pick is, for me, is Detective 583. So Detective 583 is the first Scarface and ventriloquist. I mentioned it. Just looking on the CGC census for that comic, so you can get a difference of like how different the late 80s was to the early 90s. This one being from 1993, This Detective 583 is from 1988. So Detective 583, there's only 72 of them in CGC 9.8. And out of all graded copies, 32.3% of them are CGC 9.8s. So there's just not too many Detective 583s. And, you know, if you are into sort of underfollowed, underappreciated Batman villains from the 80s and 90s, I think you can't go much worse at all than Batman Vengeance of Bane and Detective 583. Detective 583 is not one I have, but yeah, you know what, I kind of saw it on a pricing video that we did that I posted yesterday, and I've been thinking about it a little bit more, and I think I really do want a Detective 583. It's just one that kind of, you know, again, similar to Bane before I grabbed it about 2 months ago. These are somewhat underfollowed and overlooked for some reason, but at the same time I think they're great comic books because you do get those first appearances. And when I think about Batman first appearances, like how, you know, Scarecrow Silver Age first appearance, Poison Ivy Silver Age first appearance, the Riddler Silver Age first appearance, Ra's al Ghul, all those like first appearances, even like going further back to Mr. Zero, Mr. Freeze's first appearance, all those have pretty much blown up in Batman comics. So there's not very many like newer first appearances that are legit, like first time a villain or a superhero has been in Batman comics. But these are, you know, Batman Vengeance of Bane, a totally new villain. It's not like it's his modern age first appearance. Like that is this is his first appearance from 1993. And again, in Detective 583, first appearance of Scarface and Ventriloquist. They haven't been in a movie as far as I know. I think that's a really good, again, underfollowed, underappreciated Batman key issue to get. So, okay, I think that'll be about it for this video. Just definitely wanted to share with you Vengeance of Bane because, again, I do kind of think that it's just in generally overlooked and underfollowed for some reason, but I think there's no reason why it should, especially at this price right now. I think it's a great buy. Especially, yeah, Detective 583 for the same reasons. I think it's a great buy. And yeah, if you buy these now, no hype at all right now, you're getting a fair price. Hopefully a movie comes out or whatever it might be, the price goes up and you feel good about that, or maybe you want to sell some, or maybe you don't, but at that point you kind of have the power, right? Rather than, I never recommend to like see a trailer of a movie and get all excited and then go out and buy those comics, because like you're just going to get inflated prices. And that's evident in how when The Dark Knight Rises came out, this issue was pushing 400 and now it's 230. So I would totally recommend to buy those two issues that we talked about here. If you haven't already, please join the team and subscribe here to Team CGC 9.8 and click that bell for all the notifications. We are doing about 4 or 5 videos a week now, and yeah, excited of a lot of the content I got coming up with a lot of the ideas that I've been putting down, writing down kind of title ideas. So really excited about some of the videos that will be coming up in the next 2 weeks. So make sure to subscribe and hit that bell for all the notifications. But thanks so much for watching the video today, and I will see you on the next video.